Currents shift, horizons blur, and quiet coastlines suddenly erupt with terrifying force when the wrong movement draws something unseen from below. Vacation waters and professional training zones alike become stages for sudden violence. From shattered kayaks to overturned patrol boats, each ordeal escalates with shocking speed. In this video, we'll uncover 6 chilling encounters that reveal just how deadly the ocean can become. On August 14, 2025, the waters off Gansby, South Africa, stretched calm and deceptively peaceful under the morning sun. This coastal town, roughly 170 kilometers southeast of Cape Town, had earned its reputation as the world's great white shark capital decades earlier. The shallow channels and rocky outcrops surrounding Dyer Island created perfect hunting grounds for apex predators, particularly during the winter months when Cape fur seals congregated in massive colonies. Local tour operators had grown accustomed to the seasonal presence of these gigantic sharks, but recent weeks had seen an unusual uptick in sightings. Multiple boats reported encounters with exceptionally large individuals, some estimated at over 18 feet in length, patrolling closer to shore than usual. The Patel family had arrived in Gansby 3 days earlier, as part of a 2-week South African adventure. Arjun Patel, a 39-year-old software engineer from Durban, had planned the trip meticulously with his wife Priya, 37, who worked as a physiotherapist. Their daughter Mira, 11 years old and fascinated by marine biology, had begged her parents to include a kayaking expedition near the seal colonies. Despite some initial hesitation from Priya, who harbored a healthy respect for the ocean's dangers, Arjun had booked a guided tandem kayak tour through a reputable local operator. The family would paddle in a 2-person kayak with Mira seated in the middle, while guides and motorized support boats maintained close supervision. That morning, the tour group consisted of 6 kayaks and 2 support vessels. The water temperature hovered around 14 degrees Celsius, cold enough that all participants wore thick wetsuits. The tour operator, a weathered man named Jacobus who had been guiding for 17 years, conducted a thorough safety briefing. He explained that while shark encounters were possible, actual attacks on kayaks remained extraordinarily rare. Most great whites in the area focused exclusively on seals, and the predators typically investigated unfamiliar objects briefly before moving on. Still, Jacobus mentioned that 3 separate great whites had been spotted in the vicinity over the past 48 hours, including one particularly massive female that locals had nicknamed the Queen. The Patel family launched their kayak around 9 in the morning, paddling in formation with the other tourists toward a rocky outcrop approximately 800 meters from shore. The seal colony sprawled across the rocks, thousands of animals barking and jostling for space. Younger seals played in the shallows, diving and surfacing in patterns that created constant splashing. Arjun powered the kayak from the rear position while Priya sat up front, her paddle cutting through the gentle swells. Mira sat between them, her eyes wide with excitement, as she pointed out individual seals and asked questions about their behavior. The group had been observing the colony for roughly 12 minutes when the attack occurred. Later, survivors from nearby kayaks would describe the events with remarkable consistency, their testimonies providing investigators with a detailed timeline. The water around the Patel family's kayak had been relatively calm, with only minor chop from the morning breeze. Arjun had just pointed out a particularly large bull seal to Mira when the ocean erupted. The great white that breached was enormous, later estimated by marine biologists at 19 feet long, and possibly weighing over 2 tons. The shark had approached from directly below, likely drawn by the rhythmic splashing of paddles combined with the panicked movements of seals fleeing into deeper water. The predator's initial strike hit the kayak's underside with devastating force, launching the entire vessel nearly a meter into the air. All 3 family members were thrown aside as the kayak flipped completely over. What happened next unfolded in less than 30 seconds, but would haunt the witnesses for years. The shark, operating on pure predatory instinct near its primary food source, attacked with relentless ferocity. It struck the capsized kayak twice more, its massive jaws clamping down on the fiberglass hull and shaking it like a toy. Arjun surfaced briefly, shouting for his wife and daughter, but another impact sent him underwater again. The support boat nearest to the scene, positioned about 40 meters away, gunned its engine and raced toward the chaos. Priya emerged next, her wetsuit torn and her face contorted in terror as she screamed Mira's name. The girl had not resurfaced. The shark circled once, its distinctive gray dorsal fin cutting through the bloodied water before diving beneath the surface. When it emerged again, it had Arjun in its jaws. The witnesses on the nearest kayak, a couple from Germany who had frozen in shock, later reported that the shark seemed to swallow him in one continuous motion, its throat expanding grotesquely. Priya disappeared beneath the surface seconds later, pulled down by an unseen force. Mira was never seen again after the initial capsize. The support boat crew reached the overturned kayak within 90 seconds of the first strike, but the water around it churned empty save for floating debris and spreading crimson stains. Jacobus immediately radioed for additional vessels and emergency services while his assistants circled the area, desperately searching for survivors. The other kayakers were ordered to paddle away from the scene as quickly as possible, while the second support boat created a protective perimeter. An intensive search operation involving multiple boats, a helicopter, and dive teams continued for 8 hours. Crews recovered fragments of wetsuit material, pieces of the destroyed kayak, and Arjun's waterproof camera, still strapped to what remained of his life vest. No bodies were found. Marine biologists examining the evidence concluded that the attack represented an exceptionally rare and catastrophic predatory event. The shark, likely the queen based on size estimates, had been hunting actively in an area saturated with prey cues. The capsized kayak's erratic movements, combined with the family's panicked splashing, had triggered an extreme feeding response. The incident sparked immediate debate about safety protocols for tourism near seal colonies during peak predation seasons. On July 12, 2018, the waters surrounding São Miguel Island in the Azores archipelago shimmered under cloudless skies. This Portuguese territory, located roughly 1,400 kilometers west of mainland Europe in the North Atlantic, had long attracted adventure sports enthusiasts, seeking pristine conditions and minimal crowds. The volcanic islands created deep channels where warm Gulf Stream currents met cooler Atlantic waters, creating ideal conditions for marine life. Sport fishermen frequently reported massive blue marlin and tuna in these waters. At the same time, researchers documented regular sightings of short-fin mako sharks, sleek muscular predators capable of reaching speeds exceeding 70 kilometers per hour. Liam Torres, a 26-year-old professional wakeboarder from San Diego, had arrived in the Azores 3 weeks earlier to film content for his sponsors. Unlike traditional wakeboarding in protected lakes or bays, Liam specialized in open ocean sessions that showcased dramatic backdrops and challenging swells. His small crew consisted of a boat captain, a videographer, and a safety coordinator who monitored conditions from a chase boat. They had scouted several locations around São Miguel before settling on a stretch of water near Mosteiros, where consistent swells rolled in from the northwest and underwater topography created interesting wave patterns. That particular morning session began around 8 o'clock, with water temperatures hovering near 21 degrees Celsius. Liam had completed several successful runs, landing multiple inverted tricks while being towed at approximately 35 kilometers per hour behind a compact motorboat. The videographer praised the footage, noting how the emerald water and distant cliffs created stunning visuals. What none of the crew realized was that their boat's engine vibrations and Liam's repeated impacts on the surface had attracted a school of Atlantic mackerel. The small fish, fleeing from the disturbance, swam in tight formation just beneath the surface. Liam was attempting his signature move, a 360-degree rotation with a board grab, when the mako struck. He had just completed the spin and was descending toward the water when something massive collided with his left leg. The impact felt like being hit with a sledgehammer, and the force threw him sideways, separating him from the tow rope and sending him tumbling into the ocean. Underwater, disoriented and struggling to determine which way was up, Liam felt a second impact against his torso as something large and solid grazed past him. He broke the surface, gasping, immediately aware of searing pain in his calf and ribs. Blood clouded the water around him, spreading in thin tendrils. The wakeboard, still attached to his feet via bindings, floated nearby. Then he saw it, a streamlined shape circling at approximately 10 meters, its distinctive pointed snout and crescent tail unmistakable. The mako shark appeared to be about 9 feet long, its body perfectly adapted for speed. It completed one full circle before approaching again, this time more slowly, as if investigating the strange object that had fallen into its territory. The boat captain had immediately cut the engine upon seeing Liam fall, but now faced a dilemma. Restarting the motor risked attracting the shark's attention through vibration, yet reaching Liam quickly was essential. The safety coordinator made the decision, screaming at the captain to gun the engine. The motorboat surged forward, its propeller churning the water and creating enough noise to startle the circling predator. The Mako veered away, disappearing into deeper water as the boat reached Liam. Hands grabbed his arms and hauled him over the transom. The videographer, a former paramedic, immediately assessed the injuries. Liam's left calf showed deep lacerations where the shark's teeth had raked across the muscle, though miraculously no major arteries appeared severed. His right side bore extensive bruising and abrasions, likely from the second impact when the shark had grazed him. Pain shot through his chest with each breath, a probable fractured rib from the collision. The crew radioed ahead to the harbor at Mosteros, requesting emergency medical transport. During the 20-minute return journey, they kept pressure on Liam's leg wound, while he remained conscious, alternating between cursing and laughing nervously about his encounter. He kept asking whether the videographer had captured the attack, joking that it would be the best footage of his career. Upon reaching shore, paramedics transported Liam to a hospital in Ponta Delgada, where surgeons spent 4 hours repairing the damage to his calf muscle and treating the fractured rib. Marine biologists later examined photographs of the injury pattern and confirmed the attacker was almost certainly a short-fin mako. They explained that the species' incredible speed and surface hunting behavior made them particularly dangerous to water sports enthusiasts, especially when baitfish were present. On August 15, 2024, the crystalline waters off Ningaloo Reef in Western Australia beckoned adventurers with their trademark turquoise clarity. This United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization World Heritage Site, stretching roughly 260 kilometers along the remote coastline near Exmouth, represented one of the world's longest fringing reefs. The area's unique geography allowed shore-based access to deep water within meters of the beach, creating an unusual ecosystem where pelagic predators hunted surprisingly close to land. Local fishing communities had coexisted with tiger sharks for generations, understanding that these opportunistic predators followed seasonal migrations of sea turtles, dolphins, and various fish species through the reef channels. Riley Thompson, a 28-year-old adventure photographer from Brisbane, had spent the previous 6 days documenting marine life around Ningaloo. His social media presence thrived on close encounters with dangerous animals. Previous posts featured him swimming near saltwater crocodiles and kakadu, and photographing venomous snakes in the outback. Riley operated under a philosophy he frequently shared with followers: respect animals, understand their behavior, and they would tolerate human presence. His latest obsession involved tiger sharks, which he considered misunderstood creatures that deserved better public perception. That morning, Riley joined a group of 8 tourists and 2 guides on a snorkeling expedition near a section of reef known for its seal colony. The Australian sea lions congregated on rocky platforms jutting from the water, their barking audible from hundreds of meters away. The dive operator had briefed participants about maintaining distance from the seals, explaining that predators often patrolled these areas during feeding times. Riley, however, had his own agenda. He had researched tiger shark movements and knew that several large individuals frequented this particular stretch of reef. The group entered the water around 9:30 in the morning, wearing only snorkeling gear and thin wetsuits. Visibility extended beyond 20 meters, allowing clear views of the coral formations below and the seal colony ahead. The guides maintained a tight formation, keeping tourists together as they scanned for potential hazards. Riley deliberately lagged, his underwater camera ready. He had confided to another participant the night before that he hoped to capture footage of himself touching a tiger shark's flank, a stunt he believed would generate massive engagement online. Approximately 40 minutes into the dive, Riley spotted his opportunity. A tiger shark, later estimated at 13 feet in length, glided past the group at a depth of about 8 meters. Its distinctive stripes marked its flanks, and its broad, blunt head swiveled slightly as it tracked the commotion above. Most of the tourists remained on the surface, observing from a safe distance as the guides had instructed. Riley, however, took a deep breath and dove directly toward the predator. What happened next unfolded in full view of 6 witnesses, including both dive guides. Riley descended rapidly, arms extended, clearly attempting to make contact with the shark as it passed beneath him. The tiger shark initially seemed indifferent, continuing its patrol pattern. But Riley's splashing descent and outstretched hands apparently triggered a response. The seal colony nearby had created constant frantic movements in the water, prey signals the shark was already monitoring. Riley's aggressive approach likely registered as something wounded or disoriented. The shark turned with surprising speed for an animal of its size, its body twisting in a tight arc. It lunged upward, jaws opening to reveal rows of serrated teeth, designed for crushing sea turtle shells. Riley tried to abort his dive, kicking frantically toward the surface, but the predator closed the distance in seconds. Its jaws clamped onto his torso just below the ribcage, and the force of the bite spun him sideways into a nearby coral outcrop. The guides reacted immediately, diving with their metal poles and making noise underwater. One guide struck the shark's snout twice while the other attempted to grab Riley's arm. But the tiger shark maintained its grip, thrashing violently and dragging Riley deeper. Blood exploded into the water, creating a crimson cloud that obscured visibility. The shark released momentarily, only to bite again, this time catching Riley's shoulder. The secondary attack pulled him under completely, his body limp and no longer struggling. The guides surfaced, screaming for the boat as they continued to dive and strike at the shark with their poles. Other participants had already begun swimming frantically toward the vessel, their panicked splashing potentially attracting more predators. The boat captain maneuvered as close as possible while crew members prepared to enter the water. By the time they reached the site, approximately 3 minutes after the initial attack, the tiger shark had retreated into deeper water. Divers recovered Riley's body 12 minutes later, locating him wedged against a coral formation at 15 meters depth. The trauma was immediately apparent: massive tissue damage to the torso and shoulder, with evidence of the shark's powerful jaws having crushed through bone. Despite immediate attempts at resuscitation aboard the boat and continued efforts by paramedics upon reaching shore, Riley was pronounced deceased at the hospital in Exmouth. Marine biologists examining the incident noted that tiger sharks' opportunistic feeding behavior made them particularly unpredictable near natural prey concentrations. The combination of seal activity, Riley's aggressive approach, and the shark's heightened hunting mode created a lethal scenario. Authorities emphasized that Riley's decision to actively pursue and attempt physical contact with an apex predator directly violated all established safety protocols. His death served as a grim reminder that thrill-seeking behavior in wild predator territory carried consequences that no amount of confidence or experience could override. On July 19, 2021, the northern coast of Kauai emerged from the early morning mist with its characteristic emerald cliffs and pristine beaches. This Hawaiian island, the oldest and fourth largest in the archipelago, sits roughly 170 kilometers northwest of Oahu in the vast Pacific Ocean. The area around Hanalei Bay had long attracted water sports enthusiasts seeking calm conditions and stunning natural beauty. Local communities maintained deep respect for the ocean, understanding that Hawaiian waters hosted over 40 shark species, most of which posed minimal threat to humans. However, recent environmental shifts had drawn unusually large schools of baitfish closer to shore, disrupting typical predator patterns. Dana Howell, a 29-year-old yoga instructor from Portland, Oregon, had relocated to Kauai 18 months earlier after visiting the island on vacation and falling in love with its pace of life. She had built a modest following by combining her two passions, yoga and ocean sports, into stand-up paddle yoga sessions conducted on the glassy morning waters of various beaches. Her classes typically attracted tourists seeking unique experiences alongside a handful of dedicated local practitioners. Dana prided herself on selecting safe locations, always checking with lifeguards about current conditions and avoiding areas with known shark activity. That particular Monday morning, Dana had scheduled a session near a shallow reef formation off Wainiha Beach. The location offered protection from larger swells while providing enough depth for comfortable paddling. 6 students had registered for the class, ranging in experience from complete beginners to advanced practitioners. They met at 6:30 in the morning, hauling their boards across the sand as the sun climbed above the horizon. Water temperature measured around 26 degrees Celsius, warm enough that most participants wore only swimsuits rather than wetsuits. Dana conducted a brief orientation on the beach, explaining how to maintain balance during various poses and what to do if someone fell into the water. She mentioned that curious sea turtles sometimes surfaced nearby and that reef fish were abundant in the area. What she did not know was that a massive school of akule, Hawaiian big-eye scad, had moved into the shallow reef system overnight, fleeing from mahi-mahi and yellowfin tuna hunting in deeper water. The baitfish packed themselves into the protected shallows, their silvery bodies creating shimmering clouds visible from above. The class paddled out in a loose formation, reaching their designated spot approximately 150 meters from shore. The water clarity was exceptional, allowing clear views of the coral formations below at depths ranging from 3 to 5 meters. Dana positioned herself at the center of the group, demonstrating the first sequence, a simple seated twist followed by a gradual transition to standing. The students followed along, some wobbling precariously while others maintained surprising stability. 20 minutes into the session, Dana guided the class through a more challenging pose. She instructed participants to move into a standing backbend, arching their spines while keeping their feet planted firmly on the boards. Dana demonstrated the position, her body forming a graceful curve as her hands reached toward the sky behind her. Her left foot extended slightly off the board's edge, toes pointing downward and occasionally breaking the water's surface tension. The blacktip shark that struck had been hunting the Akul school for the previous 30 minutes. These sharks, typically measuring between 5 and 7 feet, were known for their acrobatic hunting style. They often leaped completely out of the water while pursuing prey. The individual who attacked Dana was approximately 6 feet tall, a juvenile male likely driven to unusual aggression by intense competition for the concentrated baitfish. The shark had been circling beneath the paddleboards, drawn by the shadows and movements above that disrupted its hunting patterns. Dana's dangling foot, moving rhythmically as she maintained balance, apparently registered as a target. The shark accelerated upward with explosive speed, bursting through the surface and clamping its jaws around her lower calf. The force of the strike, combined with the shock of sudden pain, sent Dana tumbling backward off her board. She hit the water hard, was momentarily submerged, and was disoriented. Underwater, she felt the shark's sandpaper skin scrape against her leg as it released and began circling. She surfaced screaming, immediately aware of blood streaming from her calf. The shark's dorsal fin cut through the water approximately 4 meters away, its distinctive black-tipped appearance confirming the species. Other students began shouting, some paddling frantically toward shore while others froze in terror. A woman named Bethany, positioned closest to Dana, made the critical decision to paddle directly toward her instructor rather than away. She reached Dana within seconds, extending her paddle and shouting for her to grab on. Dana clutched the board's edge while Bethany pulled her partially onto the deck. The shark completed another circle, coming within 2 meters before suddenly veering toward the baitfish school instead. The Akule exploded in panic, their collective movement apparently more attractive than the injured human. Another student, a local surfer named Kaleo, paddled alongside to provide additional stability as they began the tense journey back to shore. The trip took nearly 6 minutes, with Dana draped across Bethany's board, gritting her teeth against waves of pain. Her calf showed deep puncture wounds where the shark's teeth had penetrated, along with severe bruising and torn tissue. Blood continued to flow despite Kaleo's attempts to apply pressure with his rash guard. Other students had already reached the beach and were calling emergency services. Paramedics arrived within 12 minutes, immediately treating Dana for shock and blood loss before transporting her to a medical center in Lihue. Surgeons spent 3 hours repairing the damage, noting that the shark's teeth had narrowly missed major blood vessels and tendons. Dana remained hospitalized for 4 days, receiving antibiotics to prevent infection and undergoing physical therapy to restore mobility. Marine biologists investigating the incident emphasized that blacktip sharks rarely attacked humans intentionally. The species' hunting strategy involved rapid strikes at fast-moving prey, and Dana's dangling foot combined with the nearby baitfish concentration created a perfect storm of predatory triggers. Officials noted that the incident highlighted how even shallow, seemingly safe waters could become dangerous when bait concentrations drew predators closer to shore than usual. Dana eventually returned to teaching yoga but permanently relocated her water-based classes to protected bays with minimal fish activity. On June 17, 2021, the Gulf of Mexico stretched calm and humid under the rising sun, its waters barely rippling as morning broke across the coastline. The training exercise area, located approximately 40 kilometers southwest of Pensacola, Florida, represented a strategic zone where the United States Navy conducted routine drills for coastal patrol operations. This particular section of the Gulf featured a complex network of shallow channels, sandbars, and narrow inlets that mimicked conditions sailors might encounter in hostile waters abroad. The area's brackish mixing zones, where freshwater from numerous rivers met saltwater from the open Gulf, created unique environmental conditions that attracted diverse marine life, including bull sharks, one of the few shark species capable of thriving in both saltwater and freshwater environments. Petty Officer Alex Ramirez, a 26-year-old sonar technician from San Antonio, Texas, had enlisted in the Navy 4 years earlier after completing community college. He had been stationed at Naval Air Station Pensacola for 8 months, assigned to a coastal warfare unit specializing in small vessel operations. Alex's service record showed consistent performance and dedication, with particular aptitude for mechanical repairs and equipment maintenance. The training exercise scheduled for that morning involved testing new patrol craft maneuverability protocols in challenging shallow water conditions, simulating scenarios where larger vessels could not operate effectively. The exercise began at 0600 hours, with 12 sailors divided among 4 rigid-hull inflatable boats. Each craft measured approximately 7 meters in length, powered by twin outboard engines, and equipped with communications gear, navigation systems, and emergency equipment. The training scenario required teams to navigate a marked course, featuring tight turns around buoys, practice rapid deployment procedures, and demonstrate recovery techniques for equipment deliberately dropped overboard. Safety protocols included mandatory life jackets, tethered safety lines, and a larger support vessel monitoring from a distance. Alex's team consisted of 3 sailors operating one of the patrol boats through the designated course. He had been assigned to the equipment monitoring role, which required him to track their progress through checkpoints, while ensuring all gear remained properly secured. The morning conditions appeared ideal. Water temperature measured at 28 degrees Celsius, visibility exceeded 10 meters, and wind speeds remained minimal. What the planning officers had not accounted for was the recent completion of a nearby dredging operation that had stirred up bottom sediments and displaced numerous fish species into the training area. The boat had completed approximately 70% of the course when it encountered technical difficulties. One of the outboard engines began sputtering, forcing the team to reduce speed and investigate. Alex leaned over the starboard gunwale, attempting to examine the partially submerged lower unit for debris or fishing line that might have fouled the propeller. The other 2 crew members maintained their positions, one at the helm and the other preparing backup communication equipment in case the engine failure proved serious. What none of them realized was that a massive bull shark had been following their vessel for the previous 15 minutes. The predator, later estimated at 11 feet in length and weighing approximately 500 pounds, had been drawn to the area by vibrations from multiple boat engines and the presence of distressed fish fleeing the dredging zone. Bull sharks possessed unique adaptations that made them particularly dangerous in shallow coastal waters. Their stocky bodies provided tremendous power. Their aggressive temperament made them unpredictable, and their tolerance for low salinity water allowed them to venture into areas other large sharks avoided. The shark had been circling approximately 10 meters below the surface, tracking the boat's erratic movements as it slowed and changed direction during the engine inspection. Bull sharks were known for their investigative behavior, often bumping unfamiliar objects with considerable force before determining whether they posed a threat or a food source. When Alex leaned over the side, his arms and upper body extending into the water as he reached toward the engine, the shark apparently interpreted the movement as prey behavior. The attack came without warning. The bull shark surged upward with explosive acceleration, its broad snout ramming the boat's hull with tremendous force just below where Alex leaned. The impact rocked the entire vessel sideways, throwing all 3 crew members off balance. The sailor at the helm tumbled against the console while his companion sprawled across the deck. Alex, positioned furthest over the gunwale, had no chance to recover. The collision flipped him completely over the side and into the murky water. He surfaced immediately, gasping and disoriented, his life jacket automatically inflating. The patrol boat had drifted several meters away, both engines now silent. His teammates were shouting, scrambling to restart the motor and reach him. But the water around Alex suddenly erupted as the shark struck again. This time, the predator's jaws clamped onto his torso, just below the life jacket, and the force of the bite crushed through tissue and bone with horrifying efficiency. Alex screamed once before being pulled under, the water above him exploding into foam and blood. The 2 remaining sailors aboard reacted with trained urgency. The helmsman successfully restarted the functional engine while his companion grabbed an emergency flare gun and a boat pole. They maneuvered toward the attack site, arriving within 20 seconds to find the water thrashing violently. The shark surfaced briefly, its gray bulk rolling as it maintained its grip on Alex's body. The sailor with the boat pole struck the shark's head and gills repeatedly, while his companion fired the flare gun into the water, hoping the noise and light would startle the predator. The support vessel, monitoring from 400 meters away, had already gunned its engines toward the scene upon hearing the distress calls. Additional patrol boats converged from other sections of the course, but the bull shark, operating on pure predatory instinct, continued its attack beneath the surface. The thrashing gradually diminished, and by the time the support vessel arrived with additional personnel and equipment, the water had gone still. Divers entered the water within 8 minutes of the initial attack, working in teams while armed sailors maintained watch from boats positioned in a protective circle. The murky conditions and disturbed sediment made underwater visibility nearly impossible. Search patterns expanded outward from the last known position, covering an increasingly large area as currents and time dispersed any evidence. After 40 minutes of intensive searching, divers located fragments of Alex's life jacket and portions of his uniform, including his name tape and rank insignia. The tears in the material showed clear evidence of massive trauma from shark teeth. The search continued for 6 hours before being suspended due to deteriorating weather conditions. Recovery efforts resumed the following morning with additional resources, including sonar equipment and a larger dive team. Over the next 3 days, searchers recovered additional uniform fragments and personal effects, but Alex's body was never found. Marine biologists consulted during the investigation confirmed that the attack pattern, location, and environmental conditions were consistent with bull shark behavior. The incident prompted immediate review of Navy training protocols in Gulf coastal waters. Investigators noted that bull sharks' adaptability to shallow, brackish channels, combined with their aggressive, opportunistic hunting behavior, posed significant risks in areas where military exercises occurred. The Navy subsequently implemented new requirements for shark monitoring during shallow water training exercises and established exclusion zones in areas with known bull shark populations during peak activity seasons. Alex's family held a memorial service in San Antonio 3 weeks after the attack, honoring his service and sacrifice despite the absence of remains to bury. On February 12, 2024, the waters surrounding the Neptune Islands off South Australia shimmered under the intense summer sun. This remote archipelago, located approximately 70 kilometers southeast of Port Lincoln on the Eyre Peninsula, was one of the world's premier aggregation sites for great white sharks. The islands hosted massive colonies of Australian and New Zealand fur seals, with populations exceeding 25,000 individuals during peak seasons. These dense concentrations of prey attracted great white sharks year-round, with the highest predator activity occurring during late summer and autumn, when juvenile seals learned to hunt independently. Marine researchers had documented over 300 individual great whites in these waters, some exceeding 18 feet in length and weighing more than 2 tons. Matt Reynolds, a 28-year-old property developer from Adelaide, had organized the yacht trip as a celebration for his recent business success. He invited 5 close friends for a weekend excursion aboard a rented 12-meter yacht, promising adventure, relaxation, and spectacular wildlife viewing. The group departed Port Lincoln on Friday afternoon, planning to anchor near the Neptune Islands for Saturday observations before returning Sunday evening. Matt had researched the location extensively, reading about the seal colonies and shark populations with genuine fascination rather than fear. He viewed the trip as an opportunity to witness nature's apex predators in their element. The yacht reached its anchorage position Saturday morning around 9 o'clock, dropping anchor approximately 200 meters from the main seal colony. The rookery sprawled across rocky platforms and beach areas, with seals barking constantly and young pups testing the water under their mother's supervision. The group spent the morning relaxing on deck, drinking beer and wine, while observing the marine spectacle through binoculars. Several seals swam curiously near the yacht, popping their heads above water to investigate the unfamiliar vessel. By early afternoon, the celebration had intensified. Music played from portable speakers while the friends lounged on the yacht's deck and swim platform. The combination of alcohol, warm weather, and excitement about their surroundings created a festive atmosphere. Matt's girlfriend, Sienna, suggested they take turns jumping off the stern for photos, an idea that several others enthusiastically supported despite the yacht captain's subtle warnings about the location's wildlife. 2 members of the group entered the water briefly, swimming near the swim platform before climbing back aboard, their splashing and laughter carrying across the calm surface. What none of them observed was the great white shark that had been patrolling the channel between the yacht and the seal colony for the previous 40 minutes. The predator, a female measuring approximately 16 feet in length, had unsuccessfully ambushed 2 seals earlier that morning. Great white hunting success rates typically hovered around 50%, meaning failed attempts were common and often left the sharks searching for alternative opportunities. The yacht's presence, combined with the unusual sounds and movements of humans in the water, had attracted the sharks' attention without triggering immediate predatory behavior. Matt was standing near the port rail, beer in hand, when someone suggested they get a group photo with the seal colony in the background. Everyone moved to that side of the yacht, leaning over the rail and waving for the camera. The sudden weight shift caused the vessel to list slightly to port, and a small wave generated by a passing swell washed across the deck. Matt, slightly unsteady from alcohol consumption, stumbled backward as his foot slipped on the wet surface. He fell awkwardly against the rail, his momentum carrying him over the side. The drop was barely 2 meters, but the impact with the water jarred him, knocking the air from his lungs. He surfaced immediately, sputtering and disoriented. His friends initially erupted in laughter, assuming the fall was harmless, but their amusement turned to horror within seconds. The great white struck from below and behind, its approach completely hidden by the yacht's hull and the water's murky green tint. The shark did not breach or attack with its jaws open in classic predatory fashion. Instead, it rammed Matt's legs with tremendous force, its momentum driving upward like a torpedo. The impact spun Matt sideways, and then the shark's jaws closed on his left leg just above the knee. The pressure was immense, the serrated teeth designed for cutting through seal blubber and muscle, tearing deep into human tissue. Matt screamed, a sound that cut through the music and celebration like a knife. The shark maintained its grip for perhaps 3 seconds before releasing and diving beneath the surface. Blood erupted into the water around Matt, spreading rapidly as he thrashed and tried to swim toward the yacht. His friends had already sprung into action, 2 of them diving toward the swim platform while another grabbed a life ring. The yacht captain rushed from the cabin, immediately assessing the situation and starting the engine to reposition if necessary. Hands grabbed Matt's arms and shoulders, hauling him onto the swim platform with desperate strength. His left leg hung at an unnatural angle, with deep lacerations extending from mid-thigh to just below the knee. Muscle tissue was visible through the wounds and blood poured onto the platform's white fiberglass. The shark's teeth had completely penetrated his calf muscle and partially severed tendons. Matt remained conscious but was rapidly going into shock, his face pale and his breathing shallow. One friend, a former paramedic named Derek, took control of the situation. He grabbed towels and began applying direct pressure to the wounds while shouting instructions to others. Someone retrieved the yacht's first aid kit while another called emergency services via satellite phone. The yacht captain immediately weighed anchor and set course back to Port Lincoln at maximum speed, knowing that reaching proper medical facilities quickly was essential. The trip back took 90 minutes, during which Derek and another friend maintained constant pressure on Matt's leg while monitoring his vital signs. He drifted in and out of consciousness, mumbling incoherently about the impact and the feeling of teeth crushing through his leg. By the time they reached Port Lincoln, paramedics were waiting at the dock with an ambulance. Surgeons at the regional hospital worked for 7 hours to repair the damage, cleaning the wounds extensively to prevent infection and reconstructing torn muscle tissue. Matt's leg was saved, though doctors warned that full recovery would require months of physical therapy and multiple follow-up surgeries. Experts later emphasized that even a short encounter in waters near seal colonies can leave victims with devastating injuries, and that panicked, splashy movements in those conditions greatly heighten the risk of a shark attack.